What's going on, guys? It's Rusty here with Budget Vintage again, as always. And for those of you who don't know, this is specifically $30 Budget Vintage. Vintage banned and restricted list, but the entire sum of your deck has to be less than $30 on, I always get this wrong, TCG Player Market, not TCG Player Low. Whichever one Moxfield pulls its pricing data from when he set it to TCG. I'm pretty sure it's market. I'll update it in the description because I get it wrong a lot. Anyway, so what I want to talk about today is a deck that I've been... It's an archetype, right? It's a whole archetype. It's red-black Lurrus. It's not a list... It's not an archetype that we invented, right? Obviously, it's been an archetype before. I'm not the first one to have played it, but it's something I've been working on a lot lately. And I played it today in a small bi-weekly tournament at one of the stores near us, and it felt really, really good. So what I want to do is kind of talk about what the deck has looked like in our format, what the history has been like, what I've tried and what didn't work, and what I'm trying now that does feel like it's working, because I feel really good about where my deck list is right now. So with that in mind, let's just jump into it. So the first list I've pulled up here is one that Simon put together for one of the earlier league tournaments. What you're going to find with these Lurrus decks, right, and this Lurrus of the Dream Den, obviously being a companion is busted. He was banned in Vintage for a hot minute, but then once they errated companions, he stopped being banned, but he didn't see play anymore because he's not so good with Black Lotus, is my understanding of it. So I don't play non-budget Vintage, so I don't know a ton, but I believe that's what happened. What you're going to find in these lists is that they all, I believe, have Dragon's Rage's Channeler, and they all have Mishra's Bauble. The two of those are a pretty significant resource expenditure. You're putting 11 out of $30 into 8 cards. Obviously, that's not a sustainable average price per card, but basically what everyone who's playing this deck is saying is it's worth it, and I think it is. DRC is one of the better threats under 2CMC, and some of these lists can be a little bit threat light. I like that it's evasive. It also generates value. It fills up the graveyard for your Lurrus. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about DRC and Bauble being good, but they are, and they are in the deck generally. Then typically we see a suite of removal, discard, and then a couple other 2-mana threats, generally 2-mana threats, to back it up. So Simon's list, a couple things going on here that I want to point out. Unearth, I really like Unearth in your Lurrus deck. It means that if your opponent answers your Lurrus with a kill spell, say a simple Lightning Bolt, it's not gone for the entire game. We do pay a pretty big cost to build our decks around Lurrus, and getting the 8th card for free through the Companion Zone is awesome, but it's even better when you can get it back multiple times for 1 mana. Yes, we are a Swords to Plowshares format. Your Lurrus will get exiled sometimes. That's okay. I think Unearth is still fine. It does make us a little bit more graveyard-centric, which is a little unfortunate, but my thoughts on graveyard hate in this format is that people cannot afford to play Rest in Peace. There's not permanent static graveyard hate like Rest in Peace. There are some like Weathered Runestone, but they don't see as much play. So I think that typically it's more Tormod Scripts and Soul Guide Lanterns. And with that being the case, I think it's okay to be a little bit more in on like a value graveyard strategy. As far as the threat base, this list that Simon put together is 4 Young Pyromancer, 2 Dreadhorde Arcanist. They both synergize well with casting spells, which I will talk for a bit about the tension in these lists. And the tension in these Lurrus lists is that obviously you want to have powerful 1 and 2, or 0, I guess, but mostly you want to have powerful permanents to cast with Lurrus. So you want your win conditions to be 1 or 2 mana creatures, and you want to have a high enough density that you're going to have access to them. But since we're playing DRC, and generally I see Young Pyromancers or Arcanists, these are cards that all tend to synergize with instants and sorceries. So there's like this weird tension where you want instants and sorceries for your Young Pyromancer and your Dreadhorde Arcanist to flashback, but you also want them to be... You want permanents for your Lurrus, and then DRC adds the additional requirement that you want to hit Delirium, which means you sort of are incentivized to have additional types in your deck. And we see that Simon handles that in a couple different ways here. He plays some Tarfires, which are a tribal card. Some Seal of Fires, which are an enchantment. Additionally, they're a removal spell that you can buy back repeatedly with Lurrus. This list was made a while ago. This was before battles were even announced yet, so battles are not represented here. Cabal Therapy, I actually really like Cabal Therapy. There's not a lot of formats where you can play it. I think it's insane. Inquisition, quite frankly, misses some stuff. I like Cabal Therapy. I like the game of it. Hymn to Turok is clearly strong. Here we're playing 10 discard spells. It's pretty high, but Cabal Therapy does get milled over by DRC pretty often. And then one other benefit of playing the Lurrus deck that I want to talk about is the mana base. If you ignore Tainted Peak, which I don't think is necessary, I think it's good, but it's not necessary, at $3.16 for the playset, the black-red mana base is very cheap. You get a playset of Foreboding Ruins and Smoldering Marshes for under $2. That's a good deal. These are good lands. They work pretty well, and if you just do those two lands and basics, you have a pretty good mana base. Can be a little tough. Hymn to Turok is a difficult casting cost, and sometimes you want to cast DRC and Lightning Bolt in the same turn, so like you do have mana requirements, but it's one of the better color pairs. That's a little bit less true now that Snarls have been reprinted, thanks to the most recent of Commander decks. Frostboil Snarl, the blue-red one, used to be $2, now it's down to like 14 cents. Very interesting for blue-red enjoyers like myself, because previously you kind of had to play a playset of Sulphur Falls at $8 for the playset. Now you have the option to play Frostboil Snarls and kind of alleviate some of that. I've got opinions on that, but I'll probably save that for another video. Sideboard, very reasonable. Needle, almost as a answer to people's graveyard hate. Graveyard hate of our own and Soul Guide Lantern. I really like this because it's graveyard hate, and it also can be cracked to cantrip, which means it's kind of like a 5th and 6th copy of Mishra's Bauble. If you want to spend your 1 Lurrus spellcast per turn on drawing a card, you can do that through Soul Guide Lantern. A Braid, nice removal spell that also catches people's graveyard hate. It blanks, or it destroys Weathered Runestone, which turns our deck off pretty hard. So I like that. I think I need to start playing some Braids. I had none in my sideboard today, which is probably a mistake. Terminate, big removal. I do like that he's playing Murderous Cut and Unholy Heat. I've not registered either of those cards yet. Unholy Heat's good. You have to be Delirious, but clearly we're built around being Delirious. And Murderous Cut plays really nicely with DRC surveilling as much as it does. So I like that. I might steal some of his technology here. Go Blanks as an answer to kind of value graveyard things. And Lost Legacy for the unfair decks. I should probably play some Lost Legacies. So this is Simon's list. It's good. It was a good starting point. I know he had some decent success with it, but he hasn't worked on it in a while. My friend Dave also played a list. A couple things that are different here. I think he even called this list, Pyromancer list Pyromancer. So he opted to play no Young Pyros, which also means no Cabal Therapies. Opting to play Dread Fugues, Inquisitions, and Hymns instead. A couple things I like about this list. I really like Magmatic Channeler. I think it's got a very powerful... So first off, it's a 2-mana 4/4, right? And I think these lists have issues having enough physical presence, enough actual creatures on the board to close out the game. I think DRC is a staple. It does it very well. But Magmatic Channeler being a 2-mana 4/4 is awesome. It also lets you pitch additional discard spells that you've top decked once your opponent's hellbent and discard's no longer relevant. I really like that aspect of Magmatic Channeler. It's also very, very cheap compared to the other threats. It's basically free. I actually think I want a couple copies of Magmatic Channeler in all of my Lurrus decks. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't play them today, but I think it's a very good card. Turoks are a good place to put your budget. It's nice that you can have one card that costs 4 mana, because we're a Lurrus deck, we're not used to that. I believe you can kick them from the graveyard. Someone would have to confirm that for me. I forget how Lurrus works sometimes, but I think you can. I like that. It is a bit of a money expenditure. Dark Rituals make sense given the Turoks. I'm not sure that I like Dark Rituals in this deck typically, but I understand why they're there. Faithless Looting, 4 is good, or Faithless Looting is pretty good. I think 4 is a little high, truthfully. I've actually found it really hard to flood in this deck, given that Lurrus does what Lurrus does. I will say there are no Unearths in this list, opting for Kolaghan's Command instead. I watched him play this in an online tournament, and Kolaghan's Command was really good. We have been seeing a lot of mono blue affinity. If that's the case, I think that it's a definitely viable way to spend some money. The card is powerful, and if you play this much discard, you do get your opponent hellbent pretty fast, and K-Command, being able to make them discard in their draw step, locking them out of non-instant speed interaction, is very, very good. So I like that. 3 Lightning Bolts, I'd be curious to hear about that. Sideboard, Void Mirrors for Unfair, some Edicts, Braids, I like that. Dreams, Clings, these all make sense to me. Main takeaways, I love Magmatic Channeler. Dave's the first person that I saw play this. He also played a couple copies of Rixmati Reveler at one point. You guys can look that card up. I'm a video, so you can pause it. I think that card is very good. Again, not sold on Dark Ritual and Faithless Looting, but I like the list a lot. So they played this. I didn't see a ton of other people play it, and I started to get interested myself. But I'm kind of an idiot, I think. I found that I have this weird thing, and you guys can see it in some of the decks I played earlier, where I kind of like decide not to play decks that lead to good Magic, and instead I get obsessed with like a weird nonsensical deck building idea that kind of like produces non-games and is generally not satisfying. I went down a rabbit hole with Stasis for a little while. I've done that a couple other times, so I'm trying to focus on playing more decks that, like, regardless of win or lose, I'm enjoying the gameplay of. I'm enjoying the game states that come about, and I found that that's been really good for me to enjoy the game more. But prior to that, I got really into the idea of Crack the Earth in Lurrus. Now let me scroll down a bit because you can't quite see. It's 2 pillages over here in Lurrus. I'm going to scroll back up. So I got into the idea of Crack the Earth. I've never seen a deck play this card. I thought it was very interesting in a Lurrus shell. I think that if it's 1 mana Stone Rain, it's pretty good. And it, works to create a low resource game. So I wanted to start with that direction. So I took the Lurrus shell, which to me means Lurrus, DRC, Lightning Bolt, Mishra's Bauble. Yeah, that's the core of it. And I wanted to go in on Crack the Earth. I wanted to make this card good. So with that in mind, keep in mind, I never played this list. I never played this list. I was all set to play it at one of our weekly... Oh, no, it was in between leagues, so it was a pretty low consequence tournament. And I was ready to play it, but I started goldfishing it, and it felt terrible. It just felt really, really bad. Largely because I decided if I was playing Crack the Earth, I should take it one step further, and I should also play Boom Bust. So I was mostly interested in Boom, of course, and Boom plays pretty well with the indestructible bridges from Modern Horizons. My idea was that I would have 8 land destruction spells on 1 and 2, and I could create this like low resource game where I kind of like make my opponent trip, whether it's Cabal therapying their like relevant plays or making them sacrifice their lands, and then kind of win the game with whatever. It'd be like kind of an LD, kind of a prison strategy. With that in mind, I built pretty hard around Crack the Earth. I was interested in Unlucky Witness as something to sacrifice. This is one of the best 1-drops in Magic to sacrifice. I was also very interested in Experimental Synthesizer. It feels like it'd be a really great fit in a Lurrus deck. I think it is, and I thought that like sacrificing it to Crack the Earth made sense. You can play it back later. You generate a lot of value with your low curve deck. That like made a lot of sense to me. Additionally, I decided that Gleeful Demolition started to make sense because it could target my Experimental Synthesizers, or better yet, my Indestructible Bridges, to be 1 mana, make 3 creatures, It's a 1-mana spell. I could sacrifice the tokens to crack the earth or Cabal Therapy, and I could attack with the Dreadhorde Arcanist, and I could flash back Gleeful Demolition, which is really relevant. I also found Tendrils of Despair. It's Hymn to Turok, but it's not random, right? So it's actually Mind Rot, and you have to sacrifice something. This made sense to me, going along with Unlucky Witness and the Gleeful Demolition tokens. I like that Dreadhorde Arcanist could flash it back. Again, this all made sense to me. It all seemed like it worked well together. What I found when I started gold fishing it, though, and the sideboard is a little bit undercooked. I did include Pillage if I thought, like, if I was against, like, High Tide or Control, maybe I wanted to go up in LD. Kind of undercooked. Invasions had come out. I think Invasion of Asgul is really interesting. It's an Edict that flips into a Menace creature. I really like that it's theoretically a removal spell that you can cast from your graveyard with Lurrus. I don't know why I said theoretically. It's not theoretical, it just is. My main gripe with this deck was that my mana felt really, really bad. I mentioned earlier that I thought that one of the strengths of Red-Black is that the mana is good. But what I did is I jammed 6 tap lands into my deck, and I think there was a time where I even had some Darksteel Citadels in here to up my artifact land count. And then I found that my Foreboding Ruins were really bad because I only had, 8 basics. And I took like this 2-color combination that has a strong mana base, and I just shot it in the head and threw it in a ditch, and I gave myself a terrible mana base. The deck felt really clunky. It felt slow, like it didn't really do what it wanted. Additionally, I think that Red-Black Lurrus is historically a very interactive deck with a lot of like discard spells and removal. Somehow I trimmed all the interaction down to 4 Lightning Bolts, 4 Cabal Therapies, and then like sort of Tendrils and sort of Gleeful Demolition. But like, I somehow made this a not interactive deck. And I was sleeping on it the night before after gold fishing it some, and it felt really bad to me. So I ended up not playing this. I played Blue-Red Tolarian Terror instead. I've been loving that deck. And I never actually sleeved this up. Or I did sleeve it up, I didn't play it. Then I modified it to not have Boom Bust. I still wanted to be on Crack the Earth, because I kind of believed in that card. I still sort of do. And I modified from there. Now, the things that changed, my mana base got, I think, better. Still on Crack and Tendrils. I wanted to, and I don't think I played this in tournament either. I felt like since I really wanted to maximize my Crack the Earth, so I added some Dread Wanderers, and I got some Young Pyromancers in. I like how Young Pyromancer feels with Crack the Earth, because you cast Crack, you trigger Pyromancer, you make a 1/1 elemental, then you sack the elemental. Similarly, like Dreadhorde Arcanist and Young Pyromancer with Crack the Earth, like, kind of gets cooking. I did cut the Experimental Synthesizers because they were only good with Crack the Earth. Village Rites came in because I was up on 1-drops that I wanted to sacrifice, and I had 4 Young Pyromancers. This list also looked fine, but I never got around to playing it. I was going to play it today, but then I decided I wanted to update it a little bit. So what I actually played today is this list. I somehow have brought tags into it. I don't know why that happened. I'm going to ignore it. So this list is still on... One sec. Please hold. Type. Mana value. I think it's better. Okay, cool. This is better. This list is still on Crack the Earth. Still on Tendrils. I think I shifted the mana base. I think I got 1 more swamp in, or 2 more swamps. Because I started playing Hymn to Turok. So what I decided is that, first off, I think I did play this in a tournament. I don't recall. Anyway, I decided that I did actually play this list at a Between Leagues tournament. I think I went like 1-2 or 2-1 or something. It felt kind of like bleh, but like fine. One thing I noticed was that I hated that my Lurrus would get killed, and then I would never be able to get it back. So I decided to go up to 4 Unearths. I had talked about going up to 2, potentially trimming like a Cling to Dust and a Village Rites in this list, because Cling to Dust didn't feel necessary. But I decided to go up to the full 4 Unearths for a reason that I'll explain. But let me go into a little bit more depth. I was having trouble getting the different requirements of this deck to play nicely. I talked about them a little bit earlier. You want permanence for Lurrus. You want instants and sorceries for Young Pyromancer and Dreadhorde Arcanist and sort of DRC. You want things to sacrifice to crack the earth, and you also need to win the game eventually. And I was having trouble getting that to fit. I didn't feel like Dread Wanderer was good. I was off Gleeful Demolition. And I felt like I wanted one more 1-drop to sacrifice. Unlucky Witness felt kind of bad in testing. I think it's a good card. But what I found is that it was strange to sacrifice to Cabal Therapy or Crack the Earth, because you can only play it. You can only play the cards exiled by Unlucky Witness until the end of your next end step. So if you sack it on your turn, it's only until the end of that turn. The reason that matters is because you can't play a land, pop the Unlucky Witness to a Cabal Therapy, and then play a land off the Unlucky Witness. So I found on turn 2, I was having these awkward turns where I couldn't play Unlucky Witness, then play Cabal Therapy, flashback Cabal Therapy, because I wouldn't have one of them on turn 1, or I'd have a tap land, so I wasn't able to. I don't know. It felt really weird to me. Also, because I noticed it, 3 Smoldering Marsh. I think it's literally because I could only get 3 from the store that I bought them from. I think it should be 4. Anyway. So Unlucky Witness was not as good as I wanted it to be. So I was looking at different 1-drops that would synergize with both my plans. I was actually really interested in Voldaren Epicure. That's the one that makes a blood token when it enters. I thought that'd be cool because it's 2 permanents. I thought it was nice that the blood token I could discard a land or something, and maybe that would help me activate my Dragon's Rage's Channelers. But what I ended up finding instead was Archfiend's Vessel. And this card felt great today. I played it and it was good. So if you unearth it, or if you play it through Lurrus, instead of getting a 1/1 lifelink, you get a 5/5 Flying Demon. And believe it or not, a 1-mana 5/5 Flying Demon is good. And obviously, if things are going well, right, there's no grave hate, I have my Lurrus, I can cast this, awesome, it's good in a good situation. But because I want it in the graveyard, I thought that I would not mind playing it on turn 1, and then turn 2 sacrificing it to a Crack the Earth, because a 1/1 with lifelink is pretty anemic, I think is a way to describe it. I don't know, it's pretty shitty. I will say I played against Everett on Burn today in round 3. I went 2-0-1, by the way. I played against Everett in round 3, and I gained a few life off this. I don't think it was the deciding factor for any of our games, but I mean, there is application there. Against Mono Black Aggro, which I played against in round 1, it can trade with the Dread Wanderer and leave you up a life, so it's not it's not nothing. And I thought, I was really happy to find this card. I'm not sure if this card's ever actually been played with Lurrus in any format. I think it was a little underpowered for Modern or something, and then obviously Lurrus is banned. So this might be the only format where this is really a viable strategy, and it really ties the room together, because I felt light on threats like I do sometimes in this deck, and this is a 5/5 demon some amount of the time, which is a big threat. It's the biggest threat in the deck. It's very easy to unearth it or Lurrus it and get it back. It's also fine to sacrifice. So finding a 1-drop that I was happy to value sacrifice that can also be my most potent threat really tied the room together. So I felt good about that. It overperformed all day today. I don't know about my Dreadhorde Arcanist Young Pyromancer split. 3 and 3 is kind of hypothetical. I'm also interested in playing Magmatic Channelers, which I was not today. Another bit of tension with the unearths is that you're kind of incentivized to play 2-drops over 1-drops because they're better to unearth. Although I'm not sure that's actually true now that I think about it, because sometimes Archfiend's Vessel or DRC is better than one of these. So this was a list I played. I went on a 2-2 split of Tendrils and Hymn to Turok. I think Tendrils of Despair is probably just me being cute and kind of an idiot. I will say I really like that Dreadhorde Arcanist can flash them back. You do still have to pay the additional cost. It's not on resolution, it's as an additional cost to cast the spell, pay it, which I believe Dreadhorde makes you pay. But, I mean, if you do get to do that, it does force your opponent hellbent pretty easily. I had one Terminate main. I think more is probably fine. There are big creatures in this format. Lightning Bolt is not like your only removal. Sideboard, Stronghold Arena was kind of good. I hit people and drew some cards. Invasion of Asgol came in a lot today. I played against Mono Black Aggro against Chris round 1. I won that one. He flooded out a bit, I believe, and I was able to pull ahead. Round 2, I played against Jason on Mono Green Hardened Scales, which is actually, I think, a really good deck. He's been working on it for a while. It's getting really good. We played an absolute grinder of a game 2 that ended with me. I had 3 DRCs in play. My graveyard had been exiled twice through Silent Gravestone. I finished the game at 6 cards in library. I had 3 Invasion of Asgols on the board. It was pretty crazy. I was under severe pressure from a gigantic Arcbound Stinger, and he had a Steel Overseer active for like 4 turns. It was a weird game. It was a really, really weird game. Game 3 of that game, we did draw. I felt like I was in the driver's seat. The most notable thing in that game was that I had 2 Dragon's Rage's Channelers out, and he had a 5/5 Arcbound Worker and an Ornithopter, I believe. I think a couple counters from previous Arcbound Workers had gone onto that one. He swung in because I was not Delirious. I was missing Sorcery on my DRCs, I believe. Like, I had Land, Creature, Instant. I had 3 mana up. He swings in with a 5/5. I have 2 1/1s. I double block, and I cycled my Unearth because I was locked out by a Ground Seal. I got Delirium to make them both 3/3s, so I traded a 3/3 for a 5/5 Arcbound Worker, which is pretty good. There was a Hardened Scales in play, but it's pretty good. And then he targeted his Ornithopter with the counters, and I had Lightning Bolt for it. So at that point, I felt really ahead, but we passed to me, and it was turn 1 or 2 or something, and I couldn't win in 2 attacks. He was at 18, and there was just no way. I said, Jason, is there any way that you can kill me in 2 attacks from an empty board? And he said no, so we took the draw. I don't know for sure I would have won if we didn't take the draw. I feel pretty confident I would have, but, you know, you're always going to feel like you're ahead, right? I didn't know the contents of his hand. Then round 3, I played against Everett. He was playing Burn. I did gain a couple points off Archchain Vessel. Everett did do the classic Everett thing where he saw like 7 lands game 1, lost, beat me game 2, and then saw like 5 or 8 lands in game 3. Overall, the deck felt really, really good. If I were going to play it Monday night at the league, which we are, so we're back on our league season at Monster, which if you guys don't know what that is, obviously it's local to our area. We're doing a 6-week league. You take your 5 best placements. You can drop a week that you missed or a drop that you did badly. You get points based on how well you did in each of them. And then we're going to do a cut to top 6, I think. I think top 2 will get buys, and then like top 6 will play a tournament, and 100% of the buy-in, which is $10 per person, will be paid out in credit. Last league we did was 8 weeks. We had 50 unique people play at $10 entry per head. That's like a one-time payment for the entire league. So Preston won it, and he got like $250 credit. So anyway, if I were to play this in what is like kind of a high-stakes-ish league, I think I would play something like this. I am off of Crack the Earth. I sided it out every round. It never was like very good. I think I kept it in against Burn, weirdly, because I didn't have a good sideboard. I wanted it to be good. I tried to make it good. I think it's too cute in Lurrus strategies. I'm just going to play Lurrus. Sorry, Crack the Earth fans. So going with that, Crack the Earth out. I would probably go up a Terminate. I'm interested in getting Magmatic Channelers in. If you'll notice, my list today was $26. I don't know, let's shake the card. Can it be lower? $26.21. Obviously not using my budget that well. I would like to play 1 copy of Kroxa. It's a good threat DRC value bends it a lot. I mean, that's like pretty powerful. It's a little high at 489. I wish the Multiverse Legends sheet had dropped it a little bit more. It's kind of crazy how close it is. I could like go down a Dreadhorde Arcanist and go up a Magmatic Channeler and then be very, very close. Realistically, I probably will not get to play a Kroxa, but I would like to. What else has changed? Channelers and sideboard I would play with a little bit. Invasion of Asgul was truthfully very good. It is a threat because it flips into a 2/1 with Menace that grows. It's a removal spell that you can cast from your graveyard, right? Because the appeal of like Seal of Fire is that you can crack it and cast it every turn. So I like that you can do that with Invasion of Asgul. I looked at the other invasions. Invasion of Mercadia is a little interesting to me. Invasion of Tarkir is out of budget. But I would play something like this. I did a couple Scryfall searches just before I made the video to see what else I might play. If you guys have suggestions, let me know. Turok, obviously very interesting. $1.50, it's strong. Cemetery Gatekeeper, a little expensive, actually very similar to Turok in price. It's a 2-mana 2/1 with First Strike, which is fine. My thought is that it would help me in control and combo matchups, I think. I would exile an instant from their graveyard or mine, and that would stop them from cantripping. It's got marginal utility against High Tide. It kind of turns off their cantrips. I don't think it's worth the $1.50, and I don't love that it's symmetrical. Tenacious Underdog, I think, is strong. It's not so much a Lurrus thing as it is just like blitzing it back. It's a decent recursive threat. 2-mana 3/2 is not bad, and it's fine. Scrapwork Mutt, this card overperforms. This card is very good. I don't know if it's right here. I like that it's, additional value by surveilling it over via DRC. It's an artifact for DRC, so it ups our artifact count. I just think a 2-mana 2/1 when my threat slots are so light is not where we want to be. Bloodbraid Marauder, I don't love that it can't block. But obviously, like, I should theoretically have Delirium a decent amount of the time, and Cascading is pretty good. The issue is, like, what's it cascading into? These 1-drops, it's only hitting 1-drops. Unearth, I mean, Unearth is good. Tendrils, the card is not in play yet. So, like, hitting Tendrils, you can't sack Bloodbraid Marauder to its Tendrils. I think this card is interesting. I'm not sure if it's good. Blade of the Oni is weirdly interesting to me. It's a 2-mana 3/1. You can reconfigure it for 4 to make something a 5/5 demon with no flying, but yes, menace. I like that. It's an artifact. Keep in mind it's got reconfigure, so it is on its baseline a 2-mana 3/1. Maybe I'll try one of these. Chris suggested Triarch Praetorian. I cubed this card. It's pretty good there. 2-mana 2/1 flying is the baseline. It's got Unearth, and when you unearth it, you draw 2 cards, lose 2 life. Except, what Chris pointed out to me is it's not just when you unearth it, it's when it enters the battlefield from a graveyard, you draw 2, lose 2. So it's very similar to the Archfiend Vessel that I was impressed with. If you cast it through Lurrus, or you unearth it, it's going to give you that effect. Which I think is cool. It can block. Sometimes these cards can't block, but it can. I think this card's good. Glintsleeve Siphoner, very similar role, probably worse. Ogrehead Helm, kind of interesting to me. Kari Zev, a little interesting. I went pretty deep. These cards are probably not good. Gatekeeper kind of fights for the invasion slot. This card's interesting. Probably not. Withered Wretch. Okay, Apocryphide's kind of a joke, but if you didn't cast it from your hand, it comes in as a 4/4, so if you Lurrus it, it's a 4/4. Flametongue Yearling, I think you can kick that. This is theoretically good against, like, Delver and opposing young Pyromancers. I don't think this card's bad, actually. Rix Mahdi, Dave played this. I think it's kind of good. Notably, if you're Hellbent and you do this. It doesn't care if you didn't discard a card, so you still draw. Invasion of Mercadia, it's a Faithless Loot, or it's a Tormenting Voice that flips into this nonsense, which is kind of good. Then looking at non-creatures, I'm not going to ever play Executioner's Capsule because it doesn't kill black creatures, and black is good. Ratchet Bomb is interesting against like Enchantress and maybe Affinity, but I think that people bring in Ratchet Bomb against me because I'm so centered on 0, 1, and 2 CMC. I don't think that's good. No Rest for the Wicked is weird. It's sort of insurance against board wipes, right? I find this card actually kind of appealing. Mishra's Research Desk is fine if a little underpowered, and then Seal of Fire. So that's what I was thinking about. If you guys have any ideas for what I should maybe fill out with, or what I should spend my budget on that's not Kroxa, Titan of Death's Hunger, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think the correct threat suite is. I will say Archfiend's Vessel, I will be playing this in all my Lurrus decks going forward. I think it's very, very good. I will also be playing Unearth, probably. So those are my thoughts. Probably about a good time to wrap up the video. Let me know what you guys think. If you think Red-Black Lurrus should go a different direction. Is Invasion of Asgol actually good? I think it is pretty interesting. So yeah, let me know. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll probably make one about the overall state of the format and what we're up to, so I don't feel the need to talk about it a lot here. This will be specifically about Red-Black Lurrus and this beautiful new tech in Archfiend's Vessel.